I'm using ketamine like daily after about 6 months. I'm working on ketamine. We're using a chainsaw on ketamine. It's mental to actually think now how dangerous it was. Waking up every morning and not have that obsession to use. God, thinking about other people instead of not thinking about myself. Live on this planet, more comfortable in your own skin. Unreal what this program can do to you if you put the action in. I'm sat up here for the dyslexic people, so you don't have to be able to read and write, you just have to put the action in.
Hello and welcome to 12 Steps and 12 Questions. My name is Silvio and I'm an addict. This pod is full of personal and inspirational stories of recovery from addiction. And in every episode I'll ask each guest the same 12 questions about their life, addiction and recovery. Quick warning, there will be some graphic descriptions and a healthy amount of swearing. For this episode, please welcome Kevin.
Hi Kevin, thank you for coming around and being a guest on 12 Steps and 12 Questions today.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, so my name's Kevin and I'm definitely an addict. I live about 2 hours from London in a little village called Pebworth. It's like right in the middle of the country, about an hour from Birmingham. We call it the Shires. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit world, and stuff like that. And I've lived there all my life, and village life as well.
Lovely. Sounds great. Sounds very wholesome.
Yeah.
Let's get straight to question one then. Did you have any adverse childhood experiences, Kevin?
Yeah, so I've looked at this question quite a lot and I've actually had to meditate and pray on it because, for me, it's mostly a lot different to some people. I was born with a disability, what I didn't really understand until really I came into recovery, really.
Right.
I was born dyslexic. Mm-hmm. My mum tells me growing up as a child, I never actually managed to sort of get the English language until I was about 5.
Right.
Where we lived is a mum's next door neighbour had a child the same age as me, and we sort of grew up together, from sort of 0 up to about 5 or 6. And he used to have to communicate for me. Ask mum, I'd be asking him questions to get food and stuff like that, and he would translate it into English. So I had a lot of frustration that I couldn't communicate with this world. To start off with,
can I just ask there? I find this super interesting. So you had this interpreter, maybe for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
and how did you communicate to him what you wanted?
So what mum says is I use like a baby language.
Right.
I was so young that I don't really know. It's just what mum has told me. Like she used to see us two sort of talking, and then the person would tell mum what I wanted and stuff like that. And, I used to have to use my body language a lot more because I just couldn't talk.
Would you communicate with your mother directly this way as well?
I think so. When he wasn't around and stuff like that, I think the body language would come more out and stuff, and the finger pointing and stuff, and this language sort of was coming out what mum couldn't really understand. But that's what she's told me, sort of thing, because I'm not really going to remember that at that sort of age. So that was sort of part of my childhood experience and stuff. And another thing, I think it put quite a hard factor on that. My mum and dad, especially my mum, was super sensitive towards me.
Yes.
When I, because the way I look at it as well is I'm a square peg living in a round hole society, trying to be smashed into this round hole, and I'm a square peg. So when at school started and stuff like that, I just really lacked all this self-esteem and not really been able to read and stuff. And, my parents are so good that they like intervened at a very young age, like this is primary school, and sort of got the dyslexia people out and got me tested and stuff. And I think people have a moment what can destroy us. I'm 8 years old and I'm going through all these tests and stuff, and the dyslexia person goes to my mum and dad and just says he's a bit thick. They didn't want to recognise that I had dyslexia, and at this time my mum and dad fighted, and we got like a person to come in, I think it was about 2 times a week, and took me out of the class and did one-to-one with me, and had a benefit, but it also had a disadvantage. So I'm really good with one-to-one people. Put me in a group of people and I'll just disappear.
Right.
So because I had that one-to-one intuition with another teacher and everything like that, I sort of excelled. But then when you put me in the classroom, I just fell away from the wayside.
What's interesting, I can relate to your experience in that when I was a kid, especially around 3-4 years old, I had really severe asthma.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother, just like yours, was really sensitive, therefore, to my needs, right? Which I'm sure has all sorts of consequences later on. But what it certainly has done, from early on, it gave me this identity almost of being the sick kid. Of being, or perhaps in your case, the dyslexic kid. And in my case, of being a bit weakly, a bit sickly, and just being someone who always constantly needs looking after.
Attention,
So that's something that stayed with me forever, really, in one way or another. I mean, obviously you grow later on, you grow out of things. But that background stayed with me. 100%. Did it stay with you?
Yeah, well, it still haunts me now. Even like growing up as a child, I did feel suicidal. I never did anything about it, but this self-esteem was so low, at times I felt like I wanted to kill myself. Because
as a young kid?
As a young kid.
Wow.
Because for most people, like reading and writing is so natural to them. To a certain extent.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
And when you're having to have all this help and you can't just read like small words and stuff like that. And I think what was really difficult as well is my mum suffered with dyslexia as a child, but I don't think it was as severe as mine. And she managed to sort of get through it. Where my dad was quite an intelligent person and stuff, and they were so good and they give me so much help, but they used to do a lot of reading with me before I went to bed, and my mum would understand if I couldn't read words and like really simple 3-letter words, where my dad didn't really understand dyslexia, and he would read with me, but he would be baffled and because I couldn't read simple words and stuff, and get very frustrated with me. And that sort of hurt me as a child as well. It's not until later life, and especially going through the program, he was just trying his best and he just couldn't really understand. And my sister was a few years older than me and she could read and she went to university, and then you got this child who is really struggling with life.
So you must have felt, I suppose, quite sort of restricted and maybe left behind as well compared to your sister.
Yeah, 100%, and people around me as well.
Yeah,
it was really sort of frustrating at times, and soul destroying.
Right,
really soul destroying, and it still hurts now, and it's still struggle now with it as well. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a lot better than what I realise now. Mm. And by sort of the age of 14, mum and dad had fighted from 8 till 14 to get me statemented. Mm-hmm. So what this meant is I had a support worker in most of my lessons.
Right, okay.
And that was great in some ways, but also it was a deterrent because they did all the writing for me and I used to just sit there and listen.
Yeah.
But I think I needed that because I couldn't do two things at once. You know, so the way I take information in is by listening. I'm not very good at trying to read, you know, and what I found as well is when I sort of read, it's like I'm a robot. I sound like a robot and
right,
it feels quite embarrassing.
Right.
And stuff. And getting me statemented was a great thing because going through school and my GCSEs and stuff like that, I got it all spoke to and scribed. Mm-hmm. So it gave me a good opportunity to get some grades.
Yeah.
Nothing amazing, but I got grades.
Yeah.
Even if they're F's and G's and stuff.
Now, you described yourself as a square peg in a round hole, or in a society of round holes, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
How did that affect you then into your teenage years? And also, did you have, at that time, 10, 11, did you have any awareness of this? Any real awareness? Or was it just a sense of, there's something wrong with me?
So the other thing what started to happen, so around by us we have 3 schools. So we have a first school, a middle school and a high school. So when I moved at the age of 10 to middle school, I started getting bullied.
Right.
You know, because I couldn't communicate with the world. I looked a little bit weird. I couldn't, talk properly and everything like that.
It's an easy target for bullies.
Yeah, sticks and stones break my bones, but names are not supposed to hurt me. But they really did.
Yeah.
I really did. So from 10 till 16, I got picked on quite a lot by a lot of different people.
Wow.
And that was really difficult as
With
well.
People your age? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, my age or the year above or something.
Yeah.
So the middle school was 3 years, and then the high school was 6 different years.
Sure.
And so I'm struggling with this dyslexia, and now I'm getting bullied. Some of it was physical, but a lot of it was like mental. And I've already got a weak self-esteem, very sensitive child.
Yeah.
And like this picking is not supposed to hurt you, but it really affected me. And I think that brought the suicidal thoughts even more, because I've got this and then I'm having this. Coming into recovery, it's made me sort of realise I didn't know what they were going through. But I'm going through this. I didn't understand what they might be going through to be like that to me.
Yeah, but while this is good and helpful in recovery, I don't think that any 13-year-old goes through a bullying episode, or in your case, years and years of it, because I've gone through bullying episodes in my life when I was around 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think of anyone, I wonder what they go through. No. That's an adult's version.
Yeah. No, I totally understand.
Yeah. So at that time, it just feels, it's crushing.
It is.
It's awful.
It is.
It is awful.
Because we used to get the school bus, because the school we went to was about 8 miles from us, so we used to have a school bus. So there'd be people on the school bus what used to sort of pick on me, but then there was these 2 lads used to be in the same position all the time, and I've got to walk past them, and I used to hate getting off the bus knowing
it's like a film.
Yeah, knowing that they're going to pick on me, and I can't really do anything about it. Like some people, they retaliate. But I was not a very strong boy at all, and I hate fighting. I'm quite weak in some ways. and I'd come home crying and stuff, and my mum and dad weren't the type of people what would be like, oh, you need to stick up for yourself, you need to go and attack the bully or anything like that. They they tried to support me, but they wouldn't go to the school or anything like that because they didn't want to make it worse for me either.
Difficult position for them as well.
Yeah.
To make that call.
Yeah.
Make that decision, what is better for you, what could possibly be a better outcome for you,
Yeah.
Go and complain, make something of that, go there and say something or not say anything and just support, quote unquote, just support.
Yeah. So I'm dealing with these two situations really, what are just, negativity and self-esteem just at rock bottom.
And so here you are, you're in your puberty here. You're dyslexic, so you struggle with that. You see yourself as a round peg in a square hole, you're being bullied. At some point, drugs or drink is introduced in your life, which sort of brings us a bit to question 2, which is, what did the moment you first got hooked, or perhaps even the fun times, what did that look like?
It's an interesting one. So living in my village, we had quite a wide range of ages and qualities of life.
Right. Economically speaking, you mean?
Sort of like people at the top of the village who are quite rich, people in the middle, what are working class, and council people, and we all mixed together.
Yeah.
And one of my mates' dad loved football. So every Sunday as a child growing up, all the kids in the village would go and play football for a couple of hours and stuff like that. So we did mix a lot and everything. And I remember at the age of about 13, we used to go down the park after school and stuff like that, especially in the summer holidays and everything like that, and started smoking. Some of them were smoking, and I wanted to... No, just smoking fags to start off with.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to try it, and I remember getting a really bad head rush. And I think, this is quite cool. And a couple of weeks later, in the park, we got like this little stream and this bridge, and it's like got a load of willow trees, and you can sort of sit down there without everyone knowing what you're doing in the park. And we were sat down there, with the other older kids. I was 13 and the oldest were about 16. And this joint was going around. I didn't know it was a joint. I just thought it was a roll-up or a fag or something. And it was going round, and they would pass it to me and I had a pull on it and everything like that. And, I didn't realise it had cannabis in it. And they sort of turned around to me and just says, you just smoked a spliff. I was like, oh, right, okay, what's that? It's cannabis. And I can't really remember the hit or anything like that, but I do remember that I wanted to go around that 16-year-old kid's house and smoke weed with him that summer holidays. I went round a few times and had a few spliffs with him and stuff. And my mum and dad, they hate drugs. I've been brought up, drugs are bad. I've got no alcoholics in my family or anything like that. My mum and dad like a drink, but it was like on a Friday night and maybe a bottle of wine between them on a Saturday night. And my mum and dad had got a bit of a funny hobby as well. So my mum and dad were Morris dancers.
Wow.
Yes.
Actual real Morris dance.
Yeah, proper Morris dance,
okay.
Proper country. So with Morris dances, there's a lot of pubs, and drinking real ale and stuff like that. So, I've been around the pub culture from a very young age, sort of thing. And as a child, it was being in the garden of the pub playing and stuff like that. And as I sort of got older, they made give me a sip of their beer or something. And I did like the effect, what was produced by it and stuff. But I had this other problem that when I put it in me, I couldn't control the amount I was using. So I'd drink it like really fast, get really drunk, and then I'd be sick.
So it started really early on. So when you had your first few drinks.
So I tried the cannabis at 13, but I only tried it for that summer holidays, and then I sort of went to school sort of winter start in September, and I sort of told my mates, I've been smoking cannabis, and they were like, oh, that's so bad and everything like that. And because I'm what's the word? If somebody tells me something not to do or something, I'm not going to do it, because I want to be like them sort of thing.
All right. So you conform,
yes,
I guess?
That's mostly the word. So I never touched cannabis for a very long time. So
how did it progress then?
So I remember at 14, my mum had a party at her house, and she had the bottles of red wine in the boxes. And I remember my sister, me, and 2 other kids getting the red wine and pretending it was Ribena, drinking it, being silly everywhere and everything like that, having to be put to bed, waking up in the morning, and all the bed quilts had been taken off and everything like that. And sort of like, what's happened, Mum? And Mum's like, you're so lucky you are. Your sister walked in your bedroom and you was on your back being sick. So that's been my relationship with alcohol.
Bit of a foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
Of what was to come, I suppose.
Yeah. So from 14 to 17, I know drugs are off the table. My mum wouldn't like it. My friends don't like it, who I'm about and everything like that. So, I'm trying now and then to drink with people and stuff. And the same thing keeps happening. I drink too much. I pass out and I'm being sick. And a lot of time I used to be on my back gurgling my sick, and
Jesus,
happened quite a few times.
But you'd still do it again.
Still do it again. In the morning, I'm never ever doing it again. Couple of weeks or months away, I'm doing it again, and because my dad drinks, at these pubs and stuff, I want to be like them, so this kept sort of happening. So, I've left school and I've gone to a horticultural college called, and the first year was normal, just I sort of got into sports, so I played a lot of hockey. Cool. And I was quite a normal kid. The second year, some of the lads at the college were smoking weed, and I'm sort of realising I can't drink, so I'm just sort of thinking, mate, give that a go again. So I start smoking that, and some of the younger lads in my village start smoking weed. It sort of got into the schools, and one of my mates' dad smoked weed and stuff, so it was a place where we could go. So I used to go around my mate's house and we used to just smoke weed, a few of us and stuff. And then one of my other mates had a shed, and we used to go to the shed and just smoke weed. And I'm sort of 17 at the time, and the rest of my mates are like 2 or 3 years younger than me.
So these were good times. You felt you had a good time with this. This wasn't really much of a problem.
No, not really. And I was a kid that was not ever going to try any other drugs. Weed's enough. All the others are bad. And smoking weed for a little bit, you get inquisitive. So I started doing a bit of mushrooms. And then the pills sort of came along.
What kind of pill?
Ecstasy. Yeah. I remember
So on the one hand, you've got that, let's call it sort of stoner attitude, of kind of going, well, I don't do any powders and I don't do any pills. I used to be like that for years. Between, I don't know, maybe 15 to 19 for sure.
Yeah.
I smoked every single day, not one day would go past and I wasn't smoking. really wonder what that did to my brain, but let's move on from there. And at the same time, though, I'd have that sort of attitude, almost pride of kind of, yeah, but I'm not touching any hard stuff. That's for other people and that kind of thing. But eventually, it did lead you there.
Yeah.
You started taking pills.
Yeah.
It led me there, obviously. But how was that?
So that wasn't a major problem. It wasn't every day, the pills. It was every weekend, a Friday to a Sunday, every week. And this sort of happened for a couple of years. And, I smoked weed from 17 every day, near enough, from the beginning.
Did you have any awareness in that time that your drug use was increasing? Right? Did you ever think to yourself, wow, this is a bit much?
If you're enjoying this podcast and would like other addicts and alcoholics to hear it, then please make the pesky AIs and algorithms work their 12th step. Hit like and subscribe.
What's quite interesting is when I was smoking weed, there'd sometimes be a day where we couldn't get it. And that day felt like suicide, not having it for a day or going to a dealer and only being able to pick up a certain amount that day. Because we're living in villages and stuff and the towns are not massive. So sometimes you might have a little shortage for a day or so. I felt really grumpy and like my life has ended sort of thing. I can't have a spliff.
Yeah.
I've been to work all day and I just want to chill out.
I remember those days, and it was a wasted day.
Yeah.
There's a funny double entendre in that. I was actually sober, not wasted, but still,
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like to me. Exactly that. You can't get something, or, the person that was going to be there wasn't there. You can't get enough for another day or something like that. And I would have that same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the pills and stuff, it just felt like we was having a good time. And, because we lived in a village and we've got a few woods around, we'd go to the wood and we'd have a big bonfire, take a stereo with us and just have a good laugh.
Sounds great.
Or we'd take a load of pills and we'd just go and walk miles, and just have a good time. And I could drive then as well. So we used to drive about a bit and stuff. And it didn't seem no consequences because I could afford it. It was only weekends and stuff. It did seem good.
Yeah, great. So question 3 is, what were your worst consequences and finally your rock bottom? So obviously fast forwarding a little bit, I suppose, because you're having a good time, you're not having too many consequences. You're not using or drinking to a degree that it's debilitating or impacting your life really negatively at this point.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting one because in my early 20s, I get very lucky and I go abroad for 2 months working in the Caribbean and I'm just smoking bushweed. And I come back after them 2 months and I come back to hydroponically growing weed and I start having psychosis from it.
Right.
And I'm around my mates who I grew up with and I have a spliff with them and the next minute it feels like they're all talking about me, like proper psychosis and stuff, and I'd sort of like have to leave because I couldn't deal with the situation, what was going on. And after a couple of weeks and stuff, I managed to stop. And when I was away, I fell in love with a Caribbean woman as well. And she
you were lovesick.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was lovesick. She didn't like me smoking weed. She was very religious.
I see.
So that psychosis happened. I'm in this relationship abroad, just on a telephone, basically. She can't really come over here. She works in the Caribbean, sort of thing, and we're just having a 10-month relationship on the phone, sort of thing. And she comes over for about 2 weeks, but I stopped smoking weed after a couple of weeks, and and I leave my mates. I'm just like, I can't be around you, sort of thing. I'm trying this sober life, and it worked for a bit. I become a workaholic in this time.
So it popped up somewhere else.
Yes,
the illness.
But it was good because I wanted to start my own business, like landscaping and do tree surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So in that period of time, I worked full time for a tree surgeon in the day, and I got little jobs at night. Mm-hmm. And I used to work from about 8 in the morning till about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I was very motivated in sort of like trying to sort myself out and make something of myself, and this lasted about sort of 10 months. And I'd gone sort of around one of my friend's house now and then to see her, and she smoked a bit of weed, and I sort of go around there like, I'm not smoking weed anymore, and I'm doing all right, sort of thing. And I sort of, before this girlfriend actually came over, I sort of paid for her to come over. I had this realization is like, what am I doing? What this relationship ain't going to work. She's never going to be able to come and live here. Is she trying to get a UK passport? She's 20 years older than me. And she came over and it was horrible.
Oh, God.
It was like absolutely hard work. It's sort of realization, like, I think I was in a bubble when I was in the Caribbean. And
you don't have to be an addict to have that experience.
Yeah. No, I know. So after she left, I wanted to get back with my friends. So I started doing cocaine.
Right.
Because I knew, weed was going to set off this psychosis.
Make you paranoid, so you thought I'd try something else.
Yeah. So from cocaine, 15 years later, progression of different drugs, I'm addicted to crack and heroin and on a methadone script.
Wow.
And I remember when I was smoking weed, I'm never ever going to do crack and heroin.
Yeah.
That's for down and outers.
And then you became one yourself.
I became one myself.
So in those 15 years, which is a long period of time, of course, can you perhaps pinpoint a couple of moments where you realized, wow, this is really going into a territory I'm actually uncomfortable with? I know for me that so many times when either I tried a new drug or I went into a kind of progression that I really didn't want, like, I'm going like literally on 3-day benders, that sort of thing. And I knew I was uncomfortable with this. I knew this is wrong. I knew all of those sort of things, and still I did it. So you must have had similar experiences with maybe the first time you tried heroin or the first time you tried crack. So talk us through that a little bit.
It's quite interesting, really, because when them 10 months finished and I started doing coke, that's when the spiral started.
Right.
But I didn't notice it. The first year or so, it seemed really good. It was only at weekends, and it was all weekend and stuff like that. And then I met one of my old friends I went to school with a couple of years later, and this is when the party sort of started getting really good again.
Right.
What's quite interesting, in my head, I got introduced to ketamine. We were going down Bristol a lot. We were going to free parties. We were going to festivals. We was having a great time. But these consequences started quite quickly. I'm using ketamine like daily after about 6 months. I'm working on ketamine.
What was that like? I mean, you work in landscaping. So...
Yeah, and at that time I was a tree surgeon.
Right, so you literally go up trees on ketamine.
I didn't do a lot of actually the climbing. I did a lot of the groundwork, but still using a chainsaw on ketamine.
God.
Yeah, it's mental to actually think now how dangerous it was. And I had a few of my own customers what I did garden maintenance to, and like ketamine takes your voice away. You're very slurry and stuff like that, and I would be trying to talk to my customers and everything like that, like on ketamine, and I don't know how I kept a job. You know, and it's
You must be an excellent tree surgeon, right?
I'm pretty good with a chainsaw. Yeah. And, you know, it sort of started like at a weekend, and then it would be like, oh, we're going to Cheltenham on a Tuesday to go and get some ketamine up all night, going to work. And then I started dealing it.
Right.
And then I started having the consequences from it physically, because ketamine really damages your bladder.
Okay.
So 2 years later, I'm at Boomtown Festival, and I'm having K cramps on Friday night.
What are they?
It's like your bladder and everything's like cramping up.
Oh.
It's quite painful. You know, and I'm phoning one of my mates who's not at the festival. Can you get me some cranberry juice? You know, because it's supposed to help relieve the pain a little bit.
Okay.
You know, and all I can think about is getting that cranberry juice and getting my head down for the night. You know, and hopefully it'll be all right. You know, waking up the next day and they're gone, and just getting straight back on it. You know, and just taking loads of drugs through that festival and stuff.
So did you just take K at that time, or were you also dabbling with other stuff?
So it was K, Valium, MDMA, cocaine, acid.
How did that progress then later to heroin and crack, which, you know, that's quite another massive step, really.
Yeah. So being around some of them people who were quite inquisitive as well, we're in a place where some people know heroin addicts, you know, and I remember like going with this person to go to this person's house who's a heroin addict, and just walking in there and there's like no furniture, just a table with this kid with a spoon, with something around his arm, just about to jack up. You know, and I hate pins, and I'm just like, wow, it's quite a like an eye-opening experience. But I realise you can smoke it. And then a few days later, me and my mate are like, can you get some? And this girl used to be a heroin addict who's doing the K, and she goes round and gets some heroin and brings it round our friend's house, and we try heroin for the first time. You know, and for the first time, the hit was just amazing.
Right.
It's the first time I ever felt comfortable on this planet. Took all this anxiety and everything away from me. You know, no psychosis or anything like that. You know, it was like smoking weed without all the paranoia and all the thoughts going on. You know, and, you know, the next day we wanted to try crack, and we got hold of that person again who got us some crack. You know, and that was great as well. You know, and then, you know, I'm having problems on ketamine and stuff. And this is the first sort of time where the drug service sort of came involved. You know, my mum and dad know I've got a problem, and they're like, you really need help. You know.
Didn't you have at that time, because there's one thing, you know, going to festivals, you know, popping a few E's or whatever, and I'm not diminishing that, you know, or saying that that's just totally fine, and, you know, but it's still, I think you'll probably agree, it's still one kind of category of using, which is one kettle of fish, if you will, and then another one. This is where you go and you use heroin, you use crack cocaine. Those are different kind of drugs. They are in the way they affect you, I suppose.
Yeah, completely.
More isolating quite often, and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Was there no, from your side, was there no sort of thinking, oh God, I really shouldn't be doing this, or bloody hell, I'm smoking heroin now, that's not really cool? Anything like that? Or were you just thinking, oh, this is brilliant, I'm loving it?
It's an interesting thing because, you know, I was on these party drugs, was having problems with them a bit, you know, and this new drug had come along and I'd moved the goalpost so many times, you know, and the hit was just what I loved. You know,
Fits you like a glove.
it's fitted me like a glove, you know, and I didn't get physically addicted straight away. You know, to start off with, it was maybe twice a weekend, or we'd use it for a week and then we wouldn't do it. You know, and I'm going into the drug service because I've got a problem with ketamine. Get off the ketamine and I just substitute it for crack and heroin.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at it, you know, you did your smoking, the puff, and it brought on things that you didn't like, your paranoia, so you let that go. You switch to ketamine, which gives you all sorts of other problems. You let that go, and then what you find is that one drug or substance, or for other people, behavior, that seems to just fit you like a Lego brick.
Yeah.
Right? I had this with the first time I tried stimulant, you know, in my case, ecstasy, and then later cocaine. You know, so for you, that was heroin, that moment where those things come together and it just sticks to you. And it seems to make you whole.
Yeah, it does. But whilst this was going on, one of my really good friends, what was a semi-ex-crackhead, told me what's going to happen to me if I get addicted to crack and heroin. And I'm like, it's not going to happen to me. You know, I'm just having a bit of fun with it. You know, she told me exactly what was going to happen to me. And after about 6 months, it came true.
What did that look like?
That looked like of waking up in the morning ill. Like physically ill and thinking, what's going on? Why do I feel so ill, like I'm clucking for something? You know, and I get my heroin, I have a few burns on the foil, and then I'm back to normal.
Right.
You know, and then you're in a vicious cycle.
And when you first had that experience and you realized, I mean, you know, clearly you realized, okay, shit, I'm physically addicted to this.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I'm already in.
Right. And for a penny in for a pound.
And I can't stand being ill.
Yeah.
The illness is so bad that you can't die from it, but it feels like you're dying. And you know the solution, so it's easy to carry on with the solution.
Yeah.
You know, so when this first started, you know, I was just about holding it together. A job, money, having a decent vehicle. In 2 years, you know, I've gone, you know, trying to hold down a job, very, very rare, you know, thieving off my mum, being around people who are gonna thieve.
How long did that last, that period?
This went on for 10 years.
Wow. That's a long, long time.
A long, long time.
Did it get worse in that time, or did it just stay more or less as bad as?
It was up and down.
Right.
It was, you know, 1 minute I'm holding down a job for a couple of months or something like that. You know, and one thing I've always been really good at is befriending drug dealers and becoming useful to them.
What's that look like?
So, running drugs for them, basically.
Right.
That could be going up and picking up massive amounts from cities and, driving down the motorway with chunks of drugs in your car.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. But that if I wanted these drugs, I'm going to go to any limit and put myself in dangerous positions to get it.
Yeah, be it in that way or in any other way.
Yeah. Or just running for them all day long, shotting in houses and stuff.
What's shotting?
So sitting in a house with a load of crack and heroin all in shots, waiting for phone calls, going to a spot and selling drugs to heroin addicts and crack addicts.
A retail end of things.
Yeah.
And while you were using the whole day...
Yeah, because when I'm working, I'm getting a certain amount of drugs for doing that.
Yeah.
It's a way of, if you're not been able to work and earn money, you got to find other ways to do it. And the other thing I did as well is some people used to shoplift and stuff and get money, and I managed to keep a car because of my parents, basically. And I would take them up to cities and go and they'd buy lumps, and they would give me a certain amount of drugs for taking them up.
How did it progress then? 10 years is a long time. So sometimes you hold down a job, sometimes you're not. You're physically addicted, you're using every day.
Yeah.
It takes its toll. How did that progress, and to what is perhaps your rock bottom, if you had such a thing?
If you're enjoying this podcast and would like other addicts and alcoholics to hear it, then please make the pesky AIs and algorithms work their 12th step. Hit like and subscribe.
There was a lot of consequences.
Yeah.
And I think where the rock bottom started was about 3 years before, when my mind started going crack psychosis again.
On crack and heroin?
Yeah, on crack and heroin, but it was more of the crack what was giving me the psychosis.
Right.
I'd had a lot of consequences and got involved in a lot of dangerous things and stuff like that as well, what was way above what I was getting into, sort of thing. But because the drugs were there, they were more powerful, and I accepted the situations I was in, sort of thing.
What kind of situations were they?
Just crime.
Right.
Just being around dangerous people, where normal people would be like, go and find another dealer or get out of there. And sort of getting involved with stuff what I didn't really want to, and stuff. But where it really started is when I was losing my mind. That's really where it started. And
what was that like? I mean, how did that manifest?
This is such an individual for me, and it's only coming into sobriety what I'm really understanding it today.
Right.
I really believe a power greater than myself entered into my life and was trying to get me to a situation of a better life.
Right.
My reality was so distorted, I didn't know what reality was, and I thought I was telepathic. It was like this power had opened up Kevin's life, and over the 3 years he was showing Kevin's life, and it was like this power was doing a step 4 and 5 on me.
Right. Okay.
What's quite interesting.
Now, if we sort of open this up just a little bit to those people who might not be all that familiar with every single step of our program, can you rephrase that so that those people would understand what you just said?
So a step 4 and 5 is a thorough inventory on yourself. Looking at your part in stuff.
Right. And how did that then manifest in the last 3 years of your using?
So like I say, it took me back to childhood. I'd have like nursery rhymes in my head from school.
Yeah. So were these sort of, for lack of a better word, like paranoid, psychotic episodes? I'm probably not using the right terms, but something along those lines?
Yeah. It was very individual to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't sat at home twitching curtains stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This psychosis, was all about me. And it felt like, there was two things it sort of working, and it felt like, the devil, good and bad, sort of thing. And at that time, I tried to commit suicide.
Which brings us neatly to this question 4, which is, did you ever want to die? Did you consider suicide? So here you are, you're at your worst.
Yeah.
After many, many years of using.
So the suicide started right at the beginning of my psychosis. I couldn't cope with what was going on in my head. I couldn't control it. It was like taking over my head. And I just remember one day down our bit of land we got and just totally consumed with like this, like felt like an entity in my head, like taking over my head and everything like that. And we've got a train line about 3 miles from me. And I walked up there because I wanted to take my life because I couldn't stand this anymore.
Right. Were you sober when this was happening?
No.
Mm-hmm.
There was many times, where I wanted to stop but couldn't stop. Mm-hmm. And I walked at this train line, and again, this is a power greater than myself working in my life. There's the main line, what's the London Paddington line, and then there's another line what used to go into an army camp. And on the other line, there's a train going really slow. They're doing maintenance on it and they're beeping at me because I shouldn't be there and everything like that. And
were you on the tracks?
Yes.
Right. And were you just quite literally waiting for a train to come and hit you?
Yeah.
Okay then.
And this train's just beeping at me and everything like that, and it just sort of like, and it's going really slow, and I was just like, they're going to stop and they're going to phone the police and everything like that. I don't want any of that, and I just walk off.
Right.
And go home, and at that time, walking home, it felt like I had the whole world in my head. It was really weird. And that was right at the beginning of the psychosis, and this went on for 3 years.
You lived 3 years in that state?
Yeah. So after me trying to commit suicide, my mum tries and puts me in hospital.
Right.
They phone the ambulance, and the ambulance come and they take me to hospital. A psychiatrist come, and I just blag them. The voices are not there and everything like that, and I leave, and I'm running down the road, trying to get home. And a couple of days later, we phone the crisis team up. I get assessed. I get a psychiatrist, and they give me some pills. This should sort your voices out.
Like some antipsychotic pills?
Yeah.
Right.
And that helped a little bit, but it didn't help it all at all, really.
You kept using, of course, while you were doing the pills.
Yeah, totally.
Probably didn't help.
No power.
Yes.
Couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I was quite honest with the psychiatrist. It was like, I'm on crack and heroin. I'm on methadone as well. Because I have been trying to stop, thinking getting methadone was going to make me stop, but it didn't.
Do you know why it didn't? Just out of interest?
Because I didn't really want to.
Okay.
I wanted to, but really deep down inside me, I didn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't see a life without drugs.
Yeah.
Even if it was painful.
Yeah. Very painful, by the sound of it.
Yeah. This psychosis went on 3 years. It was around the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
To start off with, I used to see my psychiatrist every month, and we'd talk about how the pills she's given me are working and stuff like that. And a lot of time they wouldn't work, so she'd try something else, and stuff like that. And then the pandemic came, so it was a lot harder. It was all telephone, and I think because I was on drugs as well, I'm just a wasted case really, because I'm not getting off the drugs, and stuff. So I'm sort of in the wayside, and my dad had died 3 years before. That didn't stop me. My mum had sort of had enough of me, so she'd moved to Spain.
That didn't stop you either.
No.
Our question 5 is, what other methods did you try to get sober before finding the rooms? Did you try anything at all to get sober?
So my mum's tried quite a lot. She tried crystal healing.
Right.
She tried priests, talking to priests, homeopaths. I went to the drug service, hypnotists.
I've had one myself, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had a past life regression done in psychosis.
Past life regression, okay.
In psychosis.
Right. Not sure if that's healthy.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
So quite a lot then.
Yeah. And the last one was rehab.
Right, okay. So you ended up in rehab, and you were in a 12-step rehab?
Yeah, 12-step rehab. Yeah.
Yeah, that brings us straight to question 6. Did you struggle with the word God when you came into rehab and into contact with our program?
So, this is an interesting one. 2 years before I actually went to that rehab, my mum found a Christian rehab what was free. And I remember her reading out what it was and everything like that, and it was all about God, and I'm like, I ain't going to a God rehab. You must be joking. 3 years later, Mum had a bit of money, and the consequences have got that bad. It was, you got two choices: that I've had enough for you, and you go on your way and live your life, or go to rehab.
So your mum gave you an ultimatum, really?
Yeah, completely, and I don't blame her, really.
No, of course not.
I don't blame her at all. I'm surprised she put up with me as long as possible.
Yeah.
Really, she really is an amazing mother. So they were a little bit worried because they knew it was a 12-step rehab, and they knew I hated God. Yeah, and after about 2 weeks of me sort of saying I'm not going to rehab and stuff, I plucked up the courage and I went. And because my mum was in Spain, my sister had to, sort it all out. And I remember the day, the night before, I absolutely got wasted. This is.
I think that's that's the case for everybody who goes to rehab.
Yeah, and I remember on the morning before my sister got there, I spoke to my mum and I said, I think I'm ready. This paranoia, schizophrenia, because I was borderline schizophrenic,
right?
Basically, there was a tip where I'd most probably been it for the rest of my life.
Wow.
It was very close.
Wow.
So I just was like, all right, I'm going. And my sister came and we drove there. It was about an hour from us. And she was completely scared because she could see the word God at the rehab.
And everyone was like, no, we don't want him to see it.
Yeah.
But you had to.
I had to. And that was my first introduction to the 12 steps and God. I've been given this big blue book. I've been given this folder full of sheets, and I've been put in a room, and this is the rock bottom. It's
right.
Sitting in that room and realising, is this where it's come to?
Yeah.
Is this where it's come to, having to be in rehab? Yeah. My life wasn't supposed to be like this as a child at 13, 14.
No.
And I've been given all this paper and stuff like that. And I remember I was in there an hour or so, and then I was allowed out for a fag, and I met some other people who'd been in there for a day or two, and I was just like, what's going on? What's this book, and what's this stuff, and everything like that. And you know, that there was like, it's a 12-step program and stuff. What's a 12-step program, and everything like that, and just didn't really understand it. And I moved after 5 days, and I remember moving to this other rehab, and in the room we did all the therapy, there was these 2 scrolls.
Yeah.
And the word God there.
Step 3.
Yeah. You know, but I knew the secret. I'd heard of the secret many years before.
What's the secret?
It's a book, and it was made into a film.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've come across it.
Yeah. So when people says a spiritual program, I was all right with that.
Yeah.
I was all right with the universe. You know, I was all right with nature. I've been living and working in nature all my life. I could see a power greater than myself working in my life. Didn't really believe in God or anything, but I believed in, you know, the universe. And that just gave me a footing.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience, of course, with that. You know, I was struggled terribly with the word God, and I also needed to get rid of that vision I had and of the word, really, and at least for a while. And then in order to be able to just see what else there was, you know, behind that resentment, behind those things. Yeah.
And I think I had 2 interesting experiences when I was in rehab. One of them was with somebody who worked there, because I was there for such a long time. I was getting a bit of cabin fever.
Yeah.
So they let me out to do fag run, you know, and I had time to chat to him, and we were chatting about like God and higher power and stuff, and he was telling him his experience, and I was telling him his, and he comforted me in like, the universe and stuff is good, you know. And I remember when I was doing my step 2, you know, I was sort of coming to believe, you know, in this power. And this is quite funny, but Coldplay had just brought out a single called Higher Power.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in rehab, and I was just like, I wonder if that's a sign from the universe. There is a higher power.
Yeah. Presented by Coldplay.
And I like Coldplay.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Speaks to you.
You know, but I've gone on a massive journey with God.
Yeah, which brings us to question 7, of course. How do you experience your higher power today, your God moments?
So quite a hard question. It is quite a hard question. The more I pray and meditate, the more I work this program, the coincidences become so much more than just coincidences. You know, my sponsors always says, is it odd or God?
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I think one of my biggest ones is when I got my sponsor and I did my step 5 with him. He lives in the Malvern Hills. And just before I did my step 5, I went on a retreat, what he organises.
Yeah.
And the first day, we walk up the hills, and we have a gold cotton, and we walk over that and give something to God. So when I did my step 5, and you have this hour to reflect, so I thought, I'm at the Malvern Hills, I want to recreate what happened that retreat, you know, because I wanted to walk up the same little bit and everything like that, where we'd put over the gold thread. I wanted to give over this step 4, 5, you know, my whole life. I wanted to leave it.
Yeah.
You know, and what was really weird is I did all that and everything like that, had an amazing experience, and a bit later on, he takes a photo when he was walking his dog on where the golden thread was and where I'd stepped over to give my life to God.
Right.
And I was just like, what? You know, how did he know I was going to go up the Malvern Hills? How did he know I was going to walk that way You must be a lot more in touch with something than what I was. I just remember him sending it me, and it was just like, wow.
Yeah. Because you had gone there by yourself.
I'd gone there by myself after I'd just done my step 5. He'd gone a few hours later walking his dog.
Yeah.
But he took a photo of
that space.
Of that bit.
Wow.
So that was like a bit of a God moment. And I can't explain how I experience, but I just know it's working in my life today.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. I'll give you an example of what's happened to me quite a lot, where I'm at home and I'm driving to a meeting and somebody pops up from London Fellowship and I haven't seen for a while, and I've gone to Covent Garden and they don't go to Covent Garden very often, and then they appear. Or I go to another meeting and I've been thinking about that person. I wonder if they're all right and everything like that, and they just appear.
Or they call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you hear from someone that about them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like my sponsor says, that's just intuition today, but it's interesting.
Yeah, amazing. Speaking of steps, and you spoke of your step 5 there, which parts of the steps are the most difficult for you? Which is our question A.
To be honest, all the steps to a certain extent. There was always a little bit resistant towards it and not understanding some of them. But the hardest one was most probably step 4, because I had to write it.
Right.
For me, that was quite daunting. It wasn't the actual step of doing it and doing my life. It was the actual putting the pen to paper.
Yes. Do you have a message maybe for other people who suffer a similar fate to yours? Because I've taken someone through the steps, for instance, who can't really write much at all and whose English isn't great either.
Yeah.
And I know that he afterwards felt that if he can do it, everybody can do it, sort of thing. And he's actually said this on this podcast. So what would your message be, perhaps, if you had one?
I got help. My mum helped me.
Great.
Because she's always helped me with my reading and writing.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend did as well.
Yeah, great.
What I've learned from this experience of not being able to read and write, if you're open about it and everything like that, people are just like, I'll come and help you.
Yeah.
I'll come and help you.
Great.
It's the biggest thing what I've realised about the 12-step fellowship is the human kindness.
Yeah.
And step 9.
So the amends process.
Yeah. The hardest one was to my dad, who's dead.
The graveside amends.
The graveside amends, yeah. I couldn't write it. I felt quite blocked off for a couple of weeks. And it was weird because I was 90 days sober, and I was at my home group meeting where my sponsor was, and he said, can I have your chip before you have it back? And he prayed on it. And I remember driving home that night and it just all started flooding out. And I got home and I wrote it myself to the best of my English.
Yeah.
And then I got it better with somebody else, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 and 12.
Right.
Personal infantry on myself.
Step 10, yeah.
It's a reading and writing and sort of pausing and trying to do this stuff, as you're going through the day and stuff.
Yeah. So they're all related in one way, the difficulties with the steps are all related in one way or another to your dyslexia.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Now, you've been sober for a little while.
Yes.
Which character defects give you most trouble? On question 9.
One of my major character defects was victim self-pity.
Right.
From a that 8-year-old boy being told he was dyslexic.
Yeah.
It was one of the major ones in my step 5,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just manifested in so many ways. Self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think's are really difficult for me. Pride,
Right.
dishonesty,
Okay.
selfishness,
Yeah.
and most will be so many more, jealousy sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the victim and self pity I can just go into quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very natural thing for me to do.
It's a natural habitat.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the best thing recovery has given you? Question 10.
It's such an interesting question, that one is, because, you know, when I was in rehab, that somebody who says, when you get sober and you work this program, this is going to be your life, I would have never expected what I have today. You know, because I've still got my mum and I live with.
Yeah.
Where that was a very sore point when I went into rehab.
With the ultimatum and everything.
Yeah. And going through rehab, there was my sister really wanting me to never live with my mum again. It was sort of, he needs to grow up and he needs to be defending for himself and stuff like that. Well, I think that would have had a major effect on me, and I think I'd have still gone on carrying using.
Mm.
You know, having a relationship with my sister,
Mm-hmm.
when I did my amends to her, that was quite painful. But I gave her space. You know, this program is giving me space to listen to other people's opinions. You know, waking up every morning and not have that obsession to use, God.
Yeah.
That
freedom.
Yeah, and that, what we call the 4 horsemen, isn't it? Terror, despair, frustration and demandment on a daily basis, like waking up to that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm physically addicted to this drug. I've got some methadone to just get me up. Where am I going to get money from? Or I've got to go drug deal it. You know, all them things, you know, and not seeing a way out.
Yeah.
Not seeing a way out. You know, and real friends, like, my friends aren't bad in addiction, they're just in addiction. You know, they're just really ill people. You know, if they came out of addiction and everything like that, they would be really good people. You know, there are some really horrible people, but majority of it's the addiction what makes them like that. You know, so seeing other people come in the fellowship and seeing them broken and, you know, being able to help them or just, you know, being able to give them a coffee and say hello and, you know, like I talk about human kindness today, actually thinking about other people instead of not thinking about myself.
All day long.
Yeah. You know, and being able to sort of live on this planet more comfortable in your own skin. Not having to put a substance inside to change the way you feel.
And be comfortable in this world. Be
comfortable. And one thing I had a lot of is envy of other people's lives.
Right.
When I've got a really good life and not really realised it.
Right. Yeah.
Not really realised what a great life I've actually got.
Yeah. Gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude.
Yeah.
It's unreal what this program can do to you if you put the action in.
Yeah. What would you say to a newcomer or someone wondering if they're an addict?
So it's a really interesting question, and it depends on how you meet that newcomer.
Right. Okay. Go on.
You know, if what happened to me is when I was in rehab and I met somebody, he told his story. I think that's quite important. There's an alchemy what happens when you tell your story.
rather than telling people that what they should be doing, you mean?
Yeah.
How they should live their lives or how they should stop using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By telling your story to them may give them some realization that they might have a problem instead of telling them they've got a problem.
Yeah.
Because if you try and tell, because people had tried to tell me I had a problem for a very long time, but it wasn't until somebody told their story that it sunk in.
Right.
You know, if you meet somebody at a meeting or something, you know, great, you're here. Just sit down and have a listen. Keep coming to meetings and see if you relate to what has been spoken. You know, it depends on how the situation arises. You know, like one of my best friends I used to use with and stuff, you know, I've tried to help him. But all I can really do is keep staying clean and him keeps seeing this change in me. You know, I've took him to a couple of meetings, but, you know, he's sort of like, well, I don't know, and I've talked about it, but I've just got to live my life and maybe one day he'll catch on. So I think it just depends on how that person is presented to you.
Question 12, last but not least. What do you want your higher power to say to you, in inverted commas, at the pearly gates?
It's an interesting one. I used to live in hell.
Right.
Used to live in hell on earth. I know what hell on earth feels like. Don't know what the pearly gates is going to be. Even if they're pearly gates.
Well, who knows?
Yeah, you know. I think they're mostly going to say thank you for believing in me to start off with. You know, thank you for being a trusted servant to me. You know, and, you know, do you want to learn any more lessons? When are you ready to go back to work?
Right, okay. That's great. You've been a trusted servant to this podcast. Thank you so much, Kevin. I'd like to thank you for your honesty and for your courage and for the message that you shared today.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff.
Brilliant.
That was still rolling. Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you left... Is there anything that you feel is left unsaid? Is there anything that you feel that you really would like to get out and something where you kind of go, oh, I wish I had said that?
It's a hard one because there's so much we could say. But I think I'm sat up here for the dyslexic people.
Yeah.
Who really come into this program and think, how am I going to get this program? Because this is about reading and writing to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But what I'm very grateful for, it isn't much about reading and writing. It's more about action. So you don't have to be able to read and write. You just have to put the action in. You know, go into meetings, you know, getting a sponsor, you know, doing what is suggested if you want to. You know, that praying and meditating, that reaching out. You know, this is all stuff a dyslexic person can do.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to know that big book off by heart. All you have to do is the action and guidance from your sponsor and just listen to them. You know, and mental health as well. It's, you know, so many people deal with mental health and it's a hard one. And I'm very lucky that, you know, I'm not a schizophrenic anymore.
Yeah.
I was very borderline, but I still are on medication for it. You know, I've been very careful to do what the doctor has said.
Yeah.
I haven't rushed it and stuff, and recovery hasn't been easy in a way.
Yeah.
In some ways, you know, haven't been able to hold down a job yet. It's been quite soul destroying. You know, I came into this program with back pain. That's why heroin was so good.
Right.
So
it treated all kinds of pain then.
Yeah. So coming into recovery and knowing I can't really take painkillers, So having to learn how to manage your pain without painkillers is quite difficult.
Yeah.
My sleeping's been really difficult for the last 2.5 years. So recovery isn't hunky-dory. You know, I get some amazing things, but it still is a struggle. You know, every time I'm doing service or something, even if just before or something like that, I'm a bit nervous or anything like that, but afterwards it's just like, wow. You know, I'm not this shy kid who doesn't think he's good enough for anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's made me realise, like, I am worth it.
Yeah.
Because for such a long time I never felt worth anything.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for the fellowship, and I'm grateful for this power, what I call God today.
We've come to the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed it and would like other addicts and alcoholics to hear it, then please make the pesky AIs and algorithms work their 12th step. Hit like and subscribe. While this pod is based on the 12-step recovery program, it's not officially affiliated with any 12-step fellowship. 12 Steps and 12 Questions is not substance or behavior specific, it's fully self-supporting and not for profit. And you know this next bit. It's not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, and it neither endorses nor opposes any causes.